Welcome to the channel. This is going to be Cyberpunk 2077 on Geforce Now, going through all of the presets, plus going through my recommended settings that I've been using and have mentioned in my other videos for Geforce Now and Cyberpunk. We're going to hang out in just one spot for consistency as I go through these presets, but then we'll do a little bit of walking around the city, a little bit of gunfighting, and a little bit of driving around on a motorcycle so you can see some of the performance. And while we sit here in one spot, we'll pretty much just take a look at all these presets and talk about the settings. So the first thing I want to do is just start off with low preset. There's not going to be any ray tracing until we get up past ultra. No DLSS until we get into ray tracing right now, and this is where we'll start off at. So loading in here to low, just hanging out right here in the first part of the city. We're going to hang out around 70 to 73 FPS. Now those dips that you see are indicative of a CPU bottleneck, which I have seen in other games with Geforce Now, but I'm not sure if that's what's going on here, because the game, even with the newer patch, still needs optimization to use the threads properly of these CPUs. So as this game gets more mature, this may get better and those frame rate drops may not happen as much. So going up to the medium preset, they're going to add lens flare, a little bit of mix of low and medium in there. Of course, still no DLSS or ray tracing. And going back into the game, we'll dip just a little bit as we come in, but it's almost the same FPS. Granted, we are just hanging out here in the one spot. It's not having to draw or load anything any differently. But for consistency, I wanted to sit here like I have done in the past and not really move around too much. But we will show some of that here in just a little bit. So some small dips. You see bigger dips there as we go than we did when we were in just low. So let's go ahead and go in here, and we'll move it up to the high preset, which this is pretty close to what I run as my recommended settings. However, I do not run film grain or motion blur. Always have those turned off. So we have a mix of medium and high. Still no ray tracing or DLSS. Going back into the game, we'll see what we have here. On high, we've dipped down to 58 and 60 right there, up to 67. So it seems like 58 to 68 is where we're ranging at on high. Seeing a little bit of a dip as we go up in the settings, of course. But we are getting more texture resolution, a little bit nicer picture, better lighting, shadows, all that kind of good stuff. So extremely playable on all of these settings, to be honest with you, all the way up to ultra, with or without DLSS. Ray tracing is where it gets a little bit more tricky. So moving into ultra, that's going to turn everything on. Again, I recommend turning off film grain and motion blur at the minimal. No ray tracing, no DLSS. And let's see what we get on ultra just hanging out here. So very similar right now as we load in. We were closer, we were staying more at the 68. I'm seeing more dips from 63 to 67. Again, we're just sitting still in this one spot. You'll see what I'm talking about when we start walking around here. What the difference is going to be as you're moving around the city, and what your frame rate drops are going to be. Alright, so let's go in here and we're going to do the next one up, which is ray tracing medium. And that's going to have reflections turned off, medium on the lighting, and auto DLSS, which pretty much seems to be performance DLSS if you kind of look at different comparisons. So that seems to be where they're at with auto. So there we go. We'll be around 49, 51 FPS. That's with our medium ray tracing setting, which is not medium on the settings. That's actually still, I believe it's ultra on the settings. That doesn't mean your medium settings and medium ray tracing. You're the highest settings and medium ray tracing. And this would dip down to 38, 40 if we were walking around and doing a lot of busy action or gunfighting. But just hanging out in this one spot, this is what we're getting here. So let's go in here and we'll go up to ultra on the ray tracing. And that's going to keep everything else the same. Like I said, ultra is already on when you're on ray tracing. Now they're going to add the reflections. Ultra on lighting, and DLSS auto is still, I believe, performance. They may be going to high performance, but it's at least performance. And this will take us down a little bit more. 46, 47. This would dip easily. 38 right there. That, I don't know if that was CPU or GPU issues. Yeah, this would definitely dip more if you're walking around or you're doing a lot of more particle effects, or you're really busy. If ray tracing's having to get more busy in certain areas, definitely this could dip down to 35 or less easily. So a lot of options here depending on how you want to be able to run the game, and that's just all I'm trying to show you here. It's not to show you how this game's going to run everywhere. It's going to vary so much. But this will just give you a decent idea. Now there's DLSS on balanced with that same settings, and it's not much different. A little bit more on the dips you'll see here and there, so I'm pretty sure they're running performance as to take more pressure off of the local system they have there in the data center. But yeah, I think that's what's pretty much going on with the difference between balanced, and I think they're running performance or high performance. But so many great options here. This might give you hopefully the idea you need on what kind of settings you want to use in Geforce Now with Cyberpunk 2077 to get the performance that you're looking for, because really everybody wants something different, and that's kind of what's great about Geforce Now running the PC versions of these games that you own, is you really do get all those options to run this game however you want to. So this is Ultra, no ray tracing, DLSS, unbalanced. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start, and we'll take a walk around, and we'll do a couple different things in the game now so that you can see what kind of different frame rate dips and performance you get as we're not just standing still here. But I wanted to do that for consistency just as we went through those presets and to give you a general idea of the things that are changing and what's going on. Now in this preset, like I said, film grain off and motion blur off is what I prefer to run. That's completely up to you guys. Now you see these dips down to 50 now that we're walking around, and just sitting still over there we were in the 66, 68 area. So, and you'll see dips even lower than that as we get down here and a lot of crowd has to render in. This could again be indicative of a CPU bottleneck. Right there 45 and then back to 54. As we turn the corner, as there's NPCs getting loaded in and that type of thing, very well could be the CPU. So let's go in here and go back to what my recommended settings are just for the way I've been running the game, which is a high preset, turn film grain off, turn motion blur off, ray tracing on, turn all of them on, go medium on the lighting, DLSS on balanced, or performance if you want a little bit more boost, but the image quality won't quite be as good. So, and this is kind of where I've been running the game most of the time. It's an in-between the 30 and 60 range. You'll get 40s a lot of the time. And for the most part, just for the visual quality, this tends to be where I want to run it. If I want 60 FPS or higher more often, then I will opt more for the high or ultra with DLSS on balanced. One thing I really love about the PC version, though, is just how alive the city really is. There's so many more NPCs and characters and traffic and stuff that they can render having the population on high. One thing I do like about the PC version for sure. It sucks for the base last gen version. You know, those were running horribly. I know there's a lot of issues going on with Cyberpunk right now, but I'm really enjoying the game, but I'm pretty much playing it on PCs. Alright, so we'll get into a little bit of a gunfight here. And latency is fantastic. It always is. I talk about Geforce Now, Shadow, Stadia. For me, all these higher end mainstream cloud gaming services have gotten to the point where the latency is just getting so much better than what it used to be. Nothing beats local hardware, but it's getting really close. And even the fact that I can get headshots and have gunfights like this through the cloud with something like Geforce Now is amazing to me, that it even really works this well. It's fantastic service. And Cyberpunk is definitely running better on Geforce Now and Stadia in the cloud than it is on, say, PS4 and Xbox One. So, for me on Series X and PC, it's been a great experience, though, with Cyberpunk. Minus the crazy bugs, but nothing game-breaking. Alright, let's go ahead and jump on a motorcycle, and you'll see what I mean here. Of course, we're going to have a lot of fast motion. So you'll see more 30s and 40s here with my recommended high ray tracing settings, but still for me, just for how good the game looks and still getting a good experience, these settings work well for me. But I hope this video showed you what you need to know about all the different settings in Cyberpunk 2077 on Geforce Now. Thanks a lot for coming to check out the video. I really appreciate it. Leave me your comment, subscribe, thumbs up, ring the bell, all of that. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.